Is this on? It's not on. Is it? That's on. There we go. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Supervisor Angus, can you lead us in the pledge?
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, this is the PTO paid time off workshop, and it's been described to me as something more akin to a brainstorming session than it is anything else. We will start with an overview of the PTO catastrophic leave and vacation sick proposals by Human Resources to the Board of Supervisors. Is there a representative of Human Resources who wants to begin that overview? It looks like we do have some people here.
Good morning. I'm Karen Otto, and I'm the Benefits Administrator for Mohave County.
I'm Shondi Losi. I'm the HR Generalist.
And the presentation was made a few meetings ago on the proposal for the different things that we were submitting, and we wanted to have this meeting so we could talk about or answer any questions on those proposals. So does anybody have any questions to start with, or do you want us to present
If you
again?
could, just for because this will be televised, I believe, if you could spend maybe a couple minutes on the proposals that are out there to bring people up to speed, and then we will get into which is part two, which is the board questions to the Human Resources Department.
Okay. The current proposals that are out there are, one is PTO and catastrophic leave. The other is vacation and sick leave. The proposal for the PTO and catastrophic leave is for the current employees to have no change for how they accrue their time. The new hires, and we were setting an effective date of January 1st of 2016, mostly because currently we are recruiting for positions, and we actually do have someone who's been hired who isn't going to start until November. So for us, we put it into January because that just seemed like a better place to break it off. So for those new hires, we wanted to change their days to 0 to 3 years, 15 days per year, 4 to 9 years, 20 days per year, 10 to 14 years, 25 days per year, and 15 plus, 30 days per year. So we hadn't really talked about changing the PTO carryover as far as how much you would get paid out for when you left. It was still going to be the $400 for classified and $600 for unclassified. But we did have a catastrophic bank proposal for anything when you cap out at your accrual rate would carry over instead of going away, it would go into that catastrophic leave bank. And that would start effective December 31st of 2016. Anything over the 900-hour max would roll back to 825 with the hours going into the catastrophic leave. And that's the only way the catastrophic leave bank can grow is by the rollover of the max amount from year to year. And then every year, the reduction would be 75 hours of that 900-hour maximum accrual that we currently have. So that's the PTO catastrophic leave. The vacation and sick would be, we would have to take what's currently accrued because it's all PTO now, and we would have to split it. So for current employees, their PTO would be converted to vacation. So for their first year, it would be 14 hours, or 14 days, I apologize, and 12 sick leave days. So the accrual would stay the same, it would just be how they would be separated out. So currently it's all PTO. With the sick and vacation proposal, it would split it up. So for their second to fourth year, it would be 17.25 days going to PTO with the same 12 for sick. So the 12 for sick stays for everyone. 5 to 9 years is 20.5 days. 10 to 14 is 23.75, and 15 plus is 27. For the new hires, the cap would stay set until their third year. So on the anniversary of their third year going into their fourth is when it would change. The proposal on that is 12 days of vacation and 12 days of sick. At 4 to 9 years, 15 days of vacation and 12 days of sick. 10 to 14, 18 days of vacation and 12 of sick. 15 to 19 was 20 days of vacation, again 12 of sick. And anybody 20 plus would be 25 days of vacation and 12 of sick. The PTO hours will be converted to vacation hours upon the effective date of this policy. Full-time, 32 to 40 hours per week, and part-time, 20 to 39.5 hours per week. It's going to be accrued on a prorated basis in accordance with actual hours paid per the pay period and based on years of service. And it would pay out the same as the other one. That's it, right?
Okay.
That's basically it.
Oh, thank you. We'll start with board questions to the Human Resources staff. This is a workshop, so correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Ekstrom, but this is kind of loosey-goosey when how we engage with people. So if you have a question, if you want to have some give and take, that's fine.
Okay.
Start with Supervisor Angus.
Hi, Karen. I'm so sorry, but I kind of missed the beginning of your presentation when you're talking about the employees that start in 2016. Did you have some issue with if we could start immediately with new employees if, when we make a decision, or would it have to start?
We do have one that I know of that has already been offered and accepted employment that has a November start date. We kind of picked the January 1st, 2016 start date for new hires just because of that reason, because we're recruiting all the time. And then when people come in, they've accepted the position. So we just kind of threw that January 1st, 2016 date out there. We don't have anyone who's accepted a position that far into the future. We could contact the person who is impacted and let them know that this has changed. Sometimes people do make the decision on a position based on what they're going to get as far as those kinds of accruals. So we'd have to make sure that they were still in agreement with that.
Got it. Okay. But, that's a little different than when I was told that we could have something like 50 people before January 1st.
We could hire 50 to 75 people, as Mr. Cunningham indicated, before January 1st if we continue at the rate that we are. But even if we did, nobody would breach the 400 hours until their fourth year of service if we went with the current PTO proposal. So you would get from 0 to 3 years as a new hire. It would be 120 hours every year. So 3 times 120 is what, 360? I'm not the finance person, so. So you wouldn't get to 400 hours until your fourth year.
But could we do it retroactive? I mean, when we approve it, let's say we approve it in the October meeting, even though it's not a start, so immediately you would be, that is the benefit you would be offering, is what we approve in our October meeting. Even if it's not start till January. My concern is the people that are going to be hired between now and wherever we decide arbitrarily to start this thing. Why can't we start now?
I think we could start whenever we want to. I don't know the legalities of it. That would be something maybe Mr. Ekstrom could answer. I don't see why we couldn't. The only thing that we would have any kind of issue with is that we do have at least one individual
Right.
who's already accepted, and we'd have to make sure that they understood that just that little bit of what they agreed to is changing.
Right. I understand that. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any other questions for Human Resources Supervisor Angus?
you were giving us what the a proposal was, but but you didn't say about payouts. You said that the payouts weren't decided, but the document I have said that the maximum new employee, if we kept it PTO and not separated it out, the maximum accrual will be 300, and the cash out would be 300. That is the proposal I got. Is something changed?
For new hires? No, that is correct.
Okay, so the proposal from HR is 300 accrual and 300 payout.
For new hires.
Okay. That's all for me.
Okay. Supervisor Bishop, do you have any questions?
I do not, thank you.
I have a couple questions just to clarify. And this is, I'm trying to keep in account the viewing public, so if I know many of these answers already, okay?
Okay.
The HR has presented to us two proposals which was generated internally at Human Resources, and that's the two proposals that you have presented to us.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And for the viewing public's sake or information, those are two proposals. They may or may not be adopted. The current system may or may not stay in place. There may be some third, fourth, or fifth proposal that's come up by the Board of Supervisors. Is that also correct?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. And when it comes, I just want to say, from my perspective, I think HR has done a very good job, very diligent, very detailed, and I'd like to congratulate Mr. Cunningham and your office for all the work that they've done.
Thank you.
But I just want to make sure that people who are listening don't think that those are the only two options in the world out there right now.
Right.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
All right, the next, that I think concludes number 1 and number 2 on the agenda, unless any other member of the board has a question from Human Resources staff. No? Okay. Next, we're going to go on to comments from other elected officials. We could start with the board having comments amongst ourselves, or we could deal with the other elected officials first, and I have no particular preference for that. Do either Supervisor Bishop or Supervisor Angus have any preference? Let's do the other elected officials first, and then we'll have comments amongst ourselves before we go to the department heads. Is there any elected officials here who would like to speak on this issue, to give us their thoughts? I see Mr. Nicholson, one of my favorite people in the entire world. Come on down. You're the next contestant.
Probably not after today. The members of the board, what I'm about to say, I speak from the heart. I speak on behalf of my employees. I'm here at their urging, who came to my office and also asked continuously with emails and otherwise, would I show up and speak my say. Now, I've chosen not to politicize this in the past or make it a public affair. But you've called out to the elected officials and department heads to make their positions known. I've emailed each of you 3 memos in the record on BOS backup, ask you not to change the current benefit package for existing employees and listing many reasons in defense of our current system. They are there for you to review and on record for all to read. I have served the people of this county working for the assessor's office for 22 years. I have been privileged to work both as an employee and as an elected official. In my capacity of being the elected official for the assessor's office, supervising between 40 and 60 employees, I've made it my practice to attend all employment interviews and participate in the hiring process. During those interviews, the prospective employees told me what they were expecting from me, government, and I explained to them what they could expect from me, government. The benefit package was a great sales point, and it was verified when employees went on to their employee orientation. Never did I ever occur to me in my wildest dreams that those promises might be reneged on. I feel that my credibility has been undermined, and that often repeated statement that we all too often hear, quote, you can't trust government, unquote, might have some truth underlying it. Our positions as elected officers of the line and department heads place us in a much different position with regard to our employees than that of the Board of Supervisors. We work shoulder to shoulder with our staff. We share their trials and tribulations regarding family and personal challenges. We are a self-support group. We are family. Yes, we are family. And our family of workers that is has an extended family, spouses, children, grandchildren, parents, nieces, nephews, and etc., most of which have a vote. We are a relatively small county, and county employees represent a connection center that sells the county to our constituents and makes all of us look good. Each of them works just as hard as us at being public servants. Unlike small businesses, our employees come to work for us with the anticipation of staying for the rest of their working life, and thus committing themselves to a lifetime of public service. We are their leaders. Anyone who has ever been a leader and expects the troops to follow knows they had better take care of the troops and see to their needs. I have heard that this is about money and protecting the taxpayer. Until this was made an issue with the board, I never have heard a complaint from any of my constituents. It has been my observation that my constituents want the best in service and will be most disappointed should that service deteriorate. I have also heard that we have smaller departments in our county that are challenged by our current benefit package in maintaining enough employees on the job to get the work done. We are not one of them. I oppose adjusting county benefit package for everyone to meet the needs of the few. I have confronted the Arizona Department of Revenue for years as it tries to set standards for all counties based on those who are least capable, and thus trying to force Mohave County to achieve less to the detriment of its constituents. I oppose mediocrity. Let's find a way. The changes I've heard proposed turn our workers' jobs into just jobs. There seems to be a push to make these jobs on par with jobs everywhere. Ours is not just jobs. They are commitments of public service to the community. I do not believe in trying to equate our benefit package to other counties in Arizona, especially if they are not equal to ours. The greatest poachers of my staff are Clark County, Nevada, which has a huge connection strip abutting us all the way down here from Laughlin all the way up through Vegas. We are the third largest parcel count county in Arizona and the fifth largest county in the United States. Only Maricopa, Phoenix, and Pima, Tucson have larger parcel counts. Besides, who cares what the others are offering unless it's more than we offer? We should be leaders in this field. We should set the standards for all the rest. Our benefit package has been both fair to our employees and served us well. It has enabled me to hire exemplary public servants. I guess you cannot imagine the relief I feel when I have staff which are enduring tough times and know that our benefit package is taking care of them. In conclusion, I support living up to our promises and making no changes to the existing employee benefits. I support making minimal changes to the benefit package of new employees. In brief, I support our county administrator's letter of proposal for new employees. I believe, as Judge Gertler says, that our current benefit package allows us to hire and retain capable employees. Please, I urge each of you to realize that we are your family, and we look to you for leadership in taking care of all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Assessor. Does anyone have any questions for Assessor Nicholson?
Okay, thank you.
Is there any other elected officials who'd like to make comments? I see our Clerk of the Court, Verlyn Tennell.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the board. You've heard from me numerous times on this issue, so I won't reiterate everything that I've said, other than I'm opposed. But I'm also very appreciative of the words of Mr. Nicholson. I think that he said pretty much everything that I would like to say, except I would also like to reiterate my concerns about the proposed splitting of the sick and vacation time. I think that that's detrimental to the departments. It does not allow us to have the freedom to monitor the PTO like we would like to, and I think it also is detrimental to the employees who don't abuse their sick time. Thank you.
Thank you, Clerk Connell. I appreciate your comments very much. Does anyone have any questions for our clerk? No? Excellent. Is there any other elected officials who'd like to make comments? Mr. Matt Smith, our county attorney.
Good morning, Chairman Ma, Supervisors Bishop and Angus. I assume that Supervisor Johnson and Watson are not present or not present by telephone.
That is correct.
Okay. I understand that the board is in a very difficult position because, on the one hand, your job is to represent the taxpayers and the constituents, and at the same time, you are also the people that are helping to run our government. So it's a very tough position to be in, and I don't think anybody's really seen that in all the people that have spoke, because it is a tough position to be in. You got your rock and your hard place. So I understand the problems that you see. And I do not have a problem with adjusting benefits for new employees, and would also agree that we do get an extensive amount of PTO. The problem that I see in changing anything with regards to existing employees is the fact that I think people have a right to rely on the fact that these are benefits that they've accumulated over the years, and they have stayed with the county for a long period of time. And I see those as being our best employees. So, for example, my office manager, Lisa Samstag's here today, and she has an unbelievable amount of hours because she never takes time off. Jay Sack, the chief deputy, same thing. He doesn't take time off. And I think it's kind of a call to duty that they see. They just feel that things will go downhill if they're not around. And to some extent, that's true. They're probably the two most valuable employees in my office. Jace has been there for 30 years. Lisa, closer to 10. Beverly Brooks, my assistant, was there for 30 years. So you have people that have longevity, and I think the main reason that people stay with the county, and the reason I've been with the county on October 5th will be 28 years, instead of going into private practice, some opportunities I've had over the years, was I like the idea of working for the government, serving people, and I also like the idea of the benefits package, particularly the retirement, but also the medical benefits and the PTO. So over the years, I think that our employees that have been here for a long time have come to rely on that and to assume that that's going to be there. And when you give something to somebody and you take it away, it's very psychologically damaging, and it really impacts morale. And I can tell you from my own personal perspective that a number of people in my office have been concerned and upset about it. And of course, they don't know what's going to happen. They always assume the worst, and you hear a rumor and you think, oh, we're going to lose everything. It's going to be an absolute worst case scenario. But it's been very stressful for them. They don't know what's going to happen. This has dragged out for a number of months now. I know that it's a very difficult decision. You try to assimilate all this different data and come up with the best solution. But I think it would be extremely damaging to morale. And I fear that we might lose a lot of key employees if we were to go and take away any of the benefits for the existing employees. As far as the legal issue goes, I believe that is a tricky one. I can't tell you for sure which way that would come out, but I do know that even if we were to prevail in a lawsuit against the employees, I don't think we want to be in a position where we're fighting with our employees over a potential lawsuit. So I would hate to see something like that happen as well. But overall, I would just ask the board to consider not changing the benefits for the current existing employees. I think that modifying it for future employees is a reasonable compromise in this situation. And I also think that, as Supervisor Angus said, I don't think we necessarily have to wait or pick a date, but I do think we have to set a date that would not impact people that we're hiring right now, because people are asking those questions. I mean, when they're coming to the county, especially attorneys, I can speak about that because that's what I know. We know that we're not paying as much as some of the other counties, so people are very interested. What's the cost of living and what are your benefits? So the people that we're hiring right now, everybody's hiring right now, I don't think we want to impact them, but I could certainly see setting a date in the very near future, October 1st or whatever, and setting a date. I also don't think that we're going to have a problem unless we do something drastic with people with the paid time out. It's not something that happens very often. And where we make it up is that it takes us quite a while to hire people. So let's say you have somebody that has 400 hours. We're not allowed to hire somebody until that person leaves. And since the hiring freeze went into effect back in 2007, I believe was the year that we started that, the basic rule has been we have to always do an exception letter request to hire a new employee, and then you have the PTO payout, and after that we also have to wait another month. So there's a considerable amount of time that goes by where we're not filling that position. So I don't think that we're losing money, which I think is something that's been discussed, I can't remember by who at prior meetings, but we're really not losing money over these employees because we're not replacing them right away, so we're not double paying anybody. You can argue, obviously, we're a little bit less effective because we have to go a certain amount of time without somebody. But that's just the nature of the beast. That's the way it always is. When we're hiring an attorney, for example, we always have to wait. As Supervisor Moss would probably know back when he was in private practice, you're waiting for that new cycle of people that are passing the bar exam. Then they have to pass the Committee on Character and Fitness, which has really been dragging out over the last few years. Back when I was admitted, which I hate to admit, was back in 1985, you got in right away. Everybody got in right away. Now I have people sometimes that don't get in until January or February. So there's always that lag time, that drag time, so I don't think we're really losing money. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. And I appreciate your time today.
1985. Now I have a good idea how old you are.
Yes.
Supervisor
I
Angus.
just have one question. You're saying that lawyers have to go through a character and fitness test? Really? And it drags on and on? That's all.
Is that like
I never heard that before. I thought that was...
military intelligence, legal ethics? Those are well-known oxymorons, yes.
They actually are pretty aggressive. From credit reports to everything else, if you have an unpaid bill, you can't get through.
Really?
It's very tough sometimes.
Yeah, traffic tickets, traffic tickets have held people up.
My
so-
juvenile convictions, they held me up.
I want to thank you very much for coming. And again, there's probably nothing that's going to be said today that we haven't heard over and over and over. We've heard from the assessor and from you and from the judges, and we've said it's been tough from the get-go. And one thing you did say is that it's been stressful for employees, and I apologize for that. I don't think it was done well. I don't think that, from administration, maybe from the Board of Supervisors, that sort of, it was just, we want to get this right, and that does take a little time. But we never meant for that kind of thing to happen. I mean, we're not mean and monsters. We just, and you're right, it is between a rock and a hard place because we're a part of this world and we're also part of that world. And we've got to come together. And so I want to thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Supervisor Bishop.
I don't have any comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate your time.
All right, thank you.
Are there any other elected officials who'd like to make comments? I believe that wraps up the elected officials, except for ourselves. We'll go amongst ourselves for a few minutes, unless you want to put this off until after the department heads speak.
Why don't we in my estimation, maybe we should just let everybody speak and then we'll...
All right, so we're going to take a subpart of this third category and just put ourselves at the end. Would that be acceptable? Good. Department heads, are there any department heads who would like to share a few words with us on this issue?
Mr. Chairman, may I start?
Absolutely. County Administrator Hendricks.
Okay, I wanted to, and thank you very much. I wanted to be clear that administration and my department heads certainly work for the board, and we work under the direction, whatever you decide, we're going to do our best to try to implement. And I think that I can speak for all the department heads regarding that to the person. And that's our job. That's what we do. Sometimes the direction from the board, if we do have split boards, it's a little difficult, but we'll try to do what the majority of the board asks of us. But the board did ask for the directors to comment on what they felt should be done with the benefits for our employees. And they also asked our finance director, Ms. Lloyd, to give her best opinion on what the liability in the past has been. On our directors, when our directors were asked about to the person, there was a overarching theme that the directors relayed, and that was that they asked that any changes to the existing PTO system be done through attrition, that there be no change for existing employees. And I'm not going to belabor the reasons that they gave. I think our elected officials stated those very well. The other theme was that to the person, my managers, my directors believe that the PTO system was far superior over the vacation and sick leave system, and they asked for board consideration to keep that system in place. The third theme that they had in their letters to the board, to the person, was that they actually supported the position and the proposal that HR put forward for new employees, but they also asked that that be reviewed at some future date to make sure that that hiring practice and the PTO that was offered, the benefits that were offered for new employees wasn't damaging our recruitment process. And I think we can evaluate that internally. Right now, HR is evaluating our new hires. They have a record, very extensive record online through their computer, their program that tracks our new hires and also our severed employees, and it's available for everybody if you all wanted to go in and look at that. Second thing that was asked is what our past liability has been for managing PTO in place. You know, we don't budget for PTO, we manage it in place, and that was touched upon by our elected officials. What we do is first and foremost, there are inherent delays in our hiring system, and that's pretty much across the board with some exceptions, but it takes a while to actually get somebody online. You all have experienced that directly with our risk manager, trying to get a risk manager position in place. That's taken a considerable amount of time and would have eaten up any PTO our existing risk manager had, I believe. There's also, we also experience and we're able to fund PTO payout upon severance through vacancy savings. And that's huge. That's what most of the payments usually are. And thirdly, we're able to fund, in part, some of the PTO payout through hiring people, new hires, at a lower salary than our severed employees leave at. So there's funding. When Coral did the analysis on what our PTO liability has been over the last, let's say, 5 years, the way you determine that, it's a fairly simple process. What you look at is the budgeted amount for salaries, and you subtract the actual expenditure per year in that salary line item, or the line items for salaries. And the only thing that would increase a line item for salaries would be PTO payout or the increase in headcount in a department or in our organization. What Coral found is that by managing PTO in place, this organization has actually been to the positive, been to the good, has actually managed it in place sufficiently so that we've saved the county between $400,000 and $2.2 million a year. And that money has been able to be utilized to augment our general fund or to pay for other over expenditures in each department. But those are the points that I wanted to bring out to the board. I appreciate you allowing me the opportunity to do so. I've told my directors that if they feel that they need to supplement anything that I said today, that I would welcome them. If the board so asks them to come up to the microphone and speak, they're welcome to speak. If they feel like I've addressed it, then you know, it's their choice. Thank you very much.
Thank you, County Administrator Hendricks. If there are any directors who would like to speak, you may do that. But if you're just recovering old ground, I'd ask you to refrain because we have heard many of these things many times over again. So if there's any director who'd like to speak and share their thoughts on this, which may be somewhat the same, may have a different nuance, a different take on things, or just an agreement, but at a different consideration, this is your time. Okay, this is a workshop, so we're going to have a conversation. Is there a hand? Kip. I'm sorry, Kip, you're way too skinny. You have to get out from behind people. Come on down.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. I won't say anything more because Supervisor Angus mentioned it. It's all been said. You've received letters from Judge Gertler in his comments. We appreciate your consideration and your support of the courts, and look forward to your decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. I see Susie, come on down. I should be more formal. That was Kip Anderson, who's our court administrator. Now we're speaking to Susie Duranso, who is one of our directors. Fire away, Ms. Duranso.
Good morning, members of the board and Chairman Steve Moss and members of management team. I'd just like to share a little bit about my department because I think in the last meeting, Hildy had mentioned about grant funding. And I think I need to address that a little bit because that would present some information on how we actually pay out PTO for a department that's generally grant funded. Community Services Department is 99.9% grant funded, except for me, who is general fund. Most of my employees are actually funded by grant. And as we hire employees for our grant funded positions, it's hard enough to say, well, you know, when you come to work for Mohave County, you have to remember you're grant funded. If the grant goes away, the position goes away. That is something very special in my department. Unlike the other departments that are funded by general fund, my employees who are funded by grants are not assured of continued employment once the grant goes away. In fact, when they do their NEO, they have to sign some papers that they do acknowledge they're grant funded. When this grant goes away, there is no obligation for the county to keep them on board. So that in itself is hard as a recruitment tool, but I have to be proud to say that most of my employees have been with me for 10, 15, 20 years, despite the fact that we don't have an assured funding year to year because of our grants. As Matt Smith said, he's been here for 28, I've been here for 32. So I've been in that same cycle as all the old employees who are here. So one of the recruitment tool for my grant-funded employees was the benefit package. And that has been a good incentive for them, despite the fact that there's no assurance that their position is going to be carried over if the grant stays. And they have stayed with me, majority of them, 50%, 70% have stayed with me over the years. And having this uncertainty has been very difficult, uncertainty for their positions because of the grants and uncertainty because of the benefit package. So I just want to inform you that when we do pay out, because that issue came out, how are the grant funded paid out for this PTO? We do budget our grants. So we don't ask for general fund. And like Mike said, the way we manage this is that once a person leaves and we pay out, 200, 300 hours, we generally wait until the PTO has been exhausted. And fortunately, the hiring process takes a while. And we don't budget more because in grants, there's nothing more. You can't ask for any more. You know, we have a set amount for the year based on the grant given to us by the federal and state funds. We cannot ask for more. So that's been the way we have managed in paying out. Now, we are no second-class employees because we're grant funded. Whatever benefit the county sets, the grant-funded employees get the same thing. The only difference is the payout is through the grants and not the general fund. So I kind of want to explain that a little bit because I know that my department compared to others is general grant funded, and I know that in some departments they're split. You know, they have general funded and they have grant funded, and they're in the same position as I am once your program is grant funded. Thank you.
Thank you, Susie. Is there any questions for Mr. Onso?
So thank you for explaining that, because I was trying to understand it when you said last time. So let's say a position goes away, the grant goes away. You've already budgeted, put aside the money for the payout before that money, because does the money just immediately go away, or is there sort of a time that let's just say you find out that something's going to go away. Do they give you a little notice?
Yes.
And so that's how you do it?
Yes, we kind of have we strategize our budgeting process. When we are offered a grant, we know it's a 12-month grant, it's a 24-month grant, and we know in the calendar when the month is going to go away, or when the contract is going to terminate. And what we do when we hire people, we say, your contract or our contract that we're hiring you in terminates in 2 years. Okay, so we kind of work it out. If they have accrued PTO, we're saying, okay, you have 6 months to go to either use your PTO, or if you want to pay out, we want to make sure that you do it way ahead of time. So our budgeting process for grant funded is very specific because we know exactly when the grant's going to go away. But one of the things I've done so far in my department, that's why I was able to keep employees, is that, when you invest in people to work in your department, their skills are transferable. So when one grant goes away, fortunately another grants come in. And rather than letting these people go and say, sorry, but your grant is terminated, we train them so that the general functions of the department, they are aware. So new grants come in, existing employees apply for those positions, and they're carried on. That's the way I was able to manage my department for years, with very uncertainty on whether grants come and go at certain times.
Honestly didn't understand some of that, and I do now.
And that's the main reason I wanted to speak to you on this one, because my department, compared to others, 99.9% are grant funded, and we bring in about $6 million a year in grants. And primarily, I see the commitment with my staff and staying with me for 10 and 15 years, despite the uncertainty, but they have the passion to be able to carry on those programs for our community.
Right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing a great job.
Was there any questions from Supervisor Bishop before we allow Director Duranzo to flee the podium?
I have nothing.
Okay, I have nothing either, Susie, thank you. All right, was there any other comments from directors or managers which are somewhat different than what we've heard so far? Okay, let's have a conversation amongst the board. Who would like to go first? I'll go first. It's just to get to, this is my take. There is definitely a difference between new versus old employees. One, I know for sure we have the power to influence, and we should, primarily because it may be possible that the perception of the problem that we have when it comes to these continuing accumulation of PTO hours at large numbers which are capable of being cashed out could be bled off over time by the replacement of new employees. So I do agree with Supervisor Angus, and I believe Supervisor Bishop, that the new employees is a major place to look. And it's when it comes down to what I would like to do with new employees, I would prefer a much lower than current accumulation rate. And so far the accumulation rates that I've seen are not low enough in my personal preference, but I'd prefer a much lower accumulation rate and a much lower banking rate. I'd also like to see fractional cash payouts. The information I have looked at, and I'm not saying it's correct because I get a lot of contradictory statements from a lot of different people, is that we pay 100% up to our caps of 400 and 600 on payouts for a certain level of employee. Other employees who've been around much longer can get 900 or more cash payouts, but we pay 100%, and most counties, I believe, are at a 25 to 50% cash payout. So those are the three areas I would look at for new employees: a lower accumulation rate, a lower banking rate, and a fractional cash payout of the bank time. The reason for that is I believe it's not healthy when we have employees, as I've heard many people mention today, who don't take vacation time. Because that leads one of two questions in my mind, is that they're generating a lot of stress, which they're internalizing, and they're not venting it, which would affect both their performance and customer service, or which would explain a few of the citizen complaints. Or secondly, that it's really not that tough, and they're not generating that stress, so it's easy for them to not take vacation time. Now, I believe it's more likely the first and not the second, but those are the two logical branches in the flow chart if that's the case. When it comes to current employees, I believe, I don't want to take action on those, at least not immediately. I think it would be extremely prudent to adopt Supervisor Angus's proposal to go to an outside independent legal review for purposes of getting an opinion as to the parameters of our actions. Not that they will necessarily take action, but I have heard comments from people where they obliquely refer to a potential lawsuit, which I assume would be filed by certain employees and not the board. And that would be, I would also presume, based upon the type of plan that was put in place. But if that's the case, I want to see what the powers and the responsibilities of the board are in that way. And with all deference to Attorney Ekstrom and the County Attorney's Office and Matt Smith, since we're talking about your benefits, I think it would be a good idea to send that to an outside review. Not to say, and I think I speak for many of the Board of Supervisors, that we're necessarily going to adjust the current employee benefits. But we need to know what our parameters are, because we're having discussions about this, and these discussions are not going to go away. And if the financial crisis, the financial situation or outlook that is viewed by our constituency does not improve, more and more pressure is going to be put upon government employees. And whether it's this board or some other board, something will eventually break if the private sector does not see significant improvement within the next year or two. So that's what I would like to see. An outside independent review, no action on the old employees until we get that outside independent legal review. New employees, I would like to see a much lower contract rate, or excuse me, accumulation rate, much lower banking rate, and fractional cash payouts. I do believe that there's ongoing discussions. Perhaps a start date at, today is not necessarily a good thing, but one which will keep us within the honoring our commitments that we've had to our current people that we've spoken with would be a good idea, and I'm thinking maybe December 1st or something like that would handle all of that. When it comes to, I did hear something which troubles me, and is that we have a system in place where the PTO, as County Administrator Hendricks said, currently pays for itself. If an employee who has accumulated lots of time, I guess, can take a cash payout if they elect. Is it up to their election, or is our election whether they get a cash payout? We put them on leave and make them take every single hour of PT they'll have of time. How does that work, County Administrator Hendricks?
Mr. Chairman, the way it's worked in the past is that the person is allowed a certain amount of time off during the year prior to the severance. However, there's no control over when that person severs, so they would be eligible for whatever PTO payout up to the limits that we've established upon that severance.
So hypothetically, if I had 800 banked hours and I was under the unclassified, who got 600 hours, or I don't know if I can read my notes correctly, but 600 hours, I could say I'm retiring in X amount of days, 200 hours out. I'm going to take my paid time off, and then you guys have to write me a check for my 600 hours above and beyond that. Would that be how it normally would work?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the reason that caused me concern, it goes back to my prior comment about PTO. If we can put an employee on leave for 4 to 5 months, and whether that's probably the upper end, I would assume. But for the upper end of 4 to 5 months, and the department still functions, how critical was that employee? Because where I come from, if there's a hole and you can go for more than a month or two, there really isn't a hole. So I'm concerned about that. Or, as what's been, this is the other, because there's usually one of two alternatives, or we have employees who can't take time off because of that, and we have rising stress levels and internalizations of issues, and they get no time off, and there is a problem there. So we're creating one of two problems under the current system, and I think part of what we intend to do or want to do as a general global matter is over time come to grips with this problem so that service does not suffer and employees are not put into a position where they're not taking time off because of lack of choice. And if they're like Attorney Smith's two excellent employees, where he has to look at them and say, you have to go away. The department will survive without you one way or the other, and hopefully a third person will step up to cover because it's not good when people don't get some vacation time. It's not good at all. Those are my thoughts, my initial thoughts, and I'll pass the torch to whoever wants to say something else next. Yes, Assessor Nicholson.
Am I allowed to make a quick comment?
Absolutely, come on down. This is, I mean, if I break the rules, Attorney Ekstrom, if you would throw an empty bottle of water at me, I'm stressing the word empty. Okay.
My office historically has operated under a different set of policies and rules than what was presented by our administrator, Mr. Hendricks. If we have an employee with 900 hours and he's coming up, he says, okay, I'm retiring, I want to take off 900 hours. If that conflicts with our mission, if that conflicts with us getting the job done, then we believe we have the power to deny him some of those hours or whatever it takes to get our job done. Doesn't mean he's not going to get his payout, which he'd be entitled to. But if we have somebody come to us and say, hey, I want to be gone for the next 6 months, it's not going to happen because we're not going to grant it. And I think the rules are written that we at least as an elected official, have the power to deny if it's getting in the way of our mission.
I'd like to hear the answer to that because, I mean, I'll say if I'm an employee and I have 900 hours, I'm a hypothetical employee, Ron. I'm not, it's for real.
I'm looking forward to it.
I tell you to stick it because I've earned it and the merit rules say I get to take it. And if you don't like it, you'll be talking to my lawyer tomorrow. So go ahead, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, Mr. Chairman, the way we've operated in the past is exactly how our Assessor Nicholson has portrayed. If somebody, that's one of the positive things about PTO. You know, they can ask for PTO, but on scheduling of the PTO, it's up to the director or the elected official on whether they grant PTO. There's also I believe, and HR can correct me if I'm wrong, a cap on how much PTO anybody can take prior to the severance, and that's a month?
Half a year's accrual. In your last 3
Okay.
months of employment, you cannot exceed a half a year's accrual.
But generally what occurs is if someone has 900 hours, they'll come and they'll say, I'm severing, and well, very few people have 900 hours, but let's say if they're a classified employee and they have 900 hours accrual, they come and they give 2 weeks notice. You know, generally that's the way it occurs, or they have much less an accrual rate, and then they lose up, what they get is they get their maximum 400 on severance.
Well, then this raises a question in my mind. I'm the hypothetical employee with 900 hours. And roughly 3 years before my retirement, I start trying to take a couple months off every year. And Ron tells me no, because the office can't handle it. And then I'm looking at Attorney Ekstrom and I'm looking at everyone else in the room. You guys are not letting me take my vacation, though I tried to take my vacation. So what, if that's what I'm hearing, we don't have to let them. What right do they actually have? Because we can simply say no.
That's why I've always considered this a non-issue, because quite frankly, when I hear my fellow electeds or I hear a department head say, hey, you know, we can't handle this, they're going to get it, I don't agree with that. I think there have been times when I've denied it. And there have been times when I said, hey, listen, let's work around this together. But taking off 5 months, 6 months at the very end and leaving us with zero is unacceptable.
And I will say, I mean, I've heard stories about a sheriff's deputy, I think, who took, half a year off at one point. I don't know how true that is, but those have come back to me from various county employees. I'm hearing from you something different, and it could very well be, from my hearing, is the employees don't have the rights they think they have. And that's another reason I like to get an independent outside review, because if the employees don't have the rights they think they have, then a lot of people are getting up in arms for not any particularly good reason. But I'll leave that to my comment for right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Supervisor Ingas.
That was very interesting. But on the line of some things I've heard about the way that PTO is managed within departments as well, and some do better than others. It's the nature of some of the departments, like what you just said, that it's nearly impossible to do that, and so it puts a whole other pressure on it. So as far as what I'm looking at, and I'm going to go with the new employee first, because that seems to be, we're all in agreement that something's going to be done with new employees. And if it were up to me, I would like to do what most other counties do, and then I do go by what other counties do. And I think it is a good policy and practice to do that, to be in line with what other like-sized counties do. Most of them, not all of them, most of them break their PTO up into vacation and sick time. And what that does is, I believe, it makes it easier for departments to plan PTO. And then at the end, what everyone usually does is get a percentage, a dime or 25% of what they're owed. And sick time is a thank you. It's not owed to you as 100%, but it's like saying thank you for being healthy and doing a good job and stuff like that. But we do not do that. And I think that because of the majority of the employees who are now on PTO altogether, personally, I just think it would be a nightmare to divide that up now. I don't even know how we do it, and is it even worth it? And everyone seems to like it. So I'm okay with keeping PTO. This now, again, I'm only speaking for me. So if we're going to do that, and looking at paid time off for new employees, I do like the proposal that staff has given us. It is 3 weeks off your first year is a lot of time. I know it doesn't sound like a lot to government, but you tell anyone in the private sector that you get 3 weeks off your first year, and their jaw drops. You tell people off, you tell other people in the private sector you get up to 7 weeks off, and they go screaming out of the room. I know that you don't believe that, but it's true. So the 3 weeks off, but it is in line with other counties. And if I'm going to be consistent and say I want to stay in line, and we got to be competitive, because to me it's all about being competitive. If we're going to be competitive, I'm okay with that. Whether or not it's a couple of days here and there, it's negotiable. If the board wants to go one way or the other, we'll see about that. But I'm okay with that. And I do like its first 3 years, not just 2 years. It's 3 years, and then on their anniversary into year 4, it goes up. And I think it's kind of a fair, going up another 5 days. I do think this is kind of a fair proposal. Where we have to sort of, again, negotiate is, again, the accrual. I think 300 hours is fair. It's actually a little lower than what I was expecting, but I think that's fair. And then the payout. The payout that you guys have proposed is 300. I'd like to see 240. That is what the other counties do. And again, because most of the other counties do a mix of vacation and sick time, and that you get 100% of your vacation time, but you only get a little bit of your, some don't do anything, they don't pay out any sick time. And again, this year, we're giving back the short-term disability. So that whole argument of why it was put in the first place, all these extra days, we're putting that back, and I hope that helps. So that would be kind of where I'm coming from on this. And again, 240 is still, 6 weeks vacation, and you could pretty much get to that pretty quickly. But I do hope people take vacation. That's the whole point of it. It's never did I ever, when I was working, ever think of my vacation time as part of my retirement. I think that's not a good way of thinking. And I hope that the directors, now that we've had this discussion, and it's been a hard one, and I think, again, unnecessarily hard. All we've been doing is gathering information, and there's been a lot of rumors but we haven't done anything. We're just talking. But I would hope that because of this discussion, that we take a new look at what we're doing in employees, and we have great employees, but everyone needs some time off. And that is directors and managers, that you work with your employees and you figure out ways people, especially now, it's so stressful. This is a stressful job, especially in unknowns like this in government, where you don't know from one time to another. But you accept that when you go work for government, that things can change. Boards change. You're at the will of a board. So some of that is just, you accept that when you come work for the government. As far as present employees, I think that we're pretty much going to, as far as I'm concerned, stay with what we have, maybe a little bit of a tweak, because the 900, and do it by attrition. The only thing I want to throw a little wrench into, because we do want to whittle it down, and if one of the counties did this, they started at, if you were hired, let's say, I'm just going to pick out a number, if you were hired after 2010, maybe the way, because that's you're here for less than 5 years, maybe the way you use your accrual, we could tweak that. So it gets down, so we're not dealing with this still in another 20, 30 years. That would kind of be another suggestion that hasn't been brought out there yet. I thought about it because a couple of counties did do that. They broke it up, okay, after 2002, if you were hired before 2002, you're still on the old plan, but if you're hired after this, you know, and it gives the people who've a little extra benefit, who have been here a long time and who have committed and given, you know, their career here, gives them, you know, another benefit. So that's kind of where I'm at. And one more thing, and this is gonna, it's like a bomb in the middle of it, because it's the elephant in the room, and that is how we compensate people. And I had a discussion with Nick Hunt last week about that. And I believe, and I said this a couple of years ago when we first started talking about this, I believe people should be compensated by their merit, not by some arbitrary scale of steps and levels and things like that. And when we give raises, I would like the managers to be able to take the money from their department and give it to the people they see fit and be able to, you know, manage their departments instead of this one-size-fits-all. And as part of our, I'm going to assume, lengthy discussion about possible zero-based budgeting or priority budgeting is the new term I hear, I would like to see us go over and I'd like to talk to the new lawyer about that too, about what legally we can do, because I'm hearing conflicting things as I was talking to Nick Hahn about what we can do as a county. I understood under the merit rules that we always have to do this thing, but I know in 2012 the governor passed another law that gave political subdivisions more latitude in the things that they can do, and I'd like to look at that for Mohave County. And go to a system where people are compensated for their value and not just by how long they've been here. And I think that would go, you know, I was telling someone, I think the whole way government's set up, you'll never have good morale because of that sort of archaic way that we compensate people and we honor people. You know, it's just not how long you work here, it's the kind of work you do. And I'd like to see that. I mean, it works in the private sector and I think it can work here. So as we go forward with the way that we do our budgets and we know how much money we really have, I mean, that's what zero-based budgeting would do. It would give us an idea of how much money we have, and then we can decide where, you know, in which departments this money goes to. And then these department heads can decide how they're going to spend their money. And I think that's the best way to do it. And so we're not in these kinds of positions anymore. And so that's where I am in going forward. And I want to thank everyone. Like I said, it's been kind of a rough couple of months. I don't think it needed to be, but I understand it affects everyone personally, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Supervisor Bishop.
Thank you. I guess the reason I have not had a lot of questions is that I've worked for Mohave County my entire life. In fact, I was just recognized for that work Saturday night when they presented me with a Lifetime Achiever Award at the for the Chamber of Commerce, the Andy Award. So the background for winning that award was basically being a Mohave County employee. Law enforcement is my background, and I've got a lot of family that chose the private world, and they're quite wealthy right now, as many of you can attest to, and I struggled my entire life as a public servant, and I'm not sorry that I did. But during that time, working for Mohave County, I never once was told that my benefits would be cut. Sometimes I went years and years without a pay raise, and things were difficult raising a family and trying to get along in Kingman, Arizona. But I did it because I love my job and I love Mohave County. And the reason I'm sitting here as a supervisor, I think this is my way to give back to Mohave County for all that they gave me. So that's my little spiel. It's quite not as lengthy as it could be, but I think you all know where I'm coming from. And I think until Mohave County is in a position where we can do a wage compensation study and get everybody on the correct pay scale for what it is that they're doing, that I'd like to see PTO and our benefits left the way they are now. I'm okay with the new employees coming in if we want to lower the benefits for new hires, as long as we do revisit in a year and make sure that it's not stopping us from recruiting quality employees. So, PTO is a promise and a contract, and I think we need to honor that. I think we can manage PTO in place and reduce the PTO through attrition, as the county manager pointed out. Basically, that's where I am. I think we should leave the PTO as it is until we can do a wage study. And we can't really do a wage study until we have money to compensate our employees appropriately, if that's what the wage study shows. So thank you very much, and we'll make this decision as soon as we can, hopefully.
Excellent. I have a couple follow-ups, and this is more of a discussion amongst the board right now. We're back to part 3, comments from elected officials, so we're just talking amongst each other. I do appreciate your comments, Supervisor Angus, about the information gathering process and the drama that's caused. And I don't think the public or the employees understand the open meeting law means that we can't have a conversation with the 3 of us back there about something. If we want information, if we want to give instructions here and there, we have to do it up here with either 3 to 5 of us. And that, unfortunately, when it comes to whether it's a real intended action or just information gathering for brainstorming purposes, means it's, for good or ill, it's in the public eye, and people are free to take from that what they will. And sometimes it appears they take the best or the worst case scenario, depending on where their worldview is coming from. I do appreciate your commentary, Supervisor Angus, about merit pay, not step increases, not mere seniority. I will tell you that it's been my experience that people who've been around for 30 years can be your best employees in the world and deserve every penny we can possibly shower them with. They could also be your worst employees who've just managed to hang on. And I do believe we should empower our directors or managers to give people pay increases within their budget without regard to steps. And that's something I would encourage HR to look at. See, we're going to start another rumor here. Is to how would you transition to that? When it comes to another topic, I heard 300 was suggested by HR as being the bankable amount. I heard Supervisor Angus say 240. No.
300 bank, 240 payout.
240 payout. Okay. So basically, it's 5 out of 6 would be, 4 out of 5. 4 out of 5 hours, so an 80% payout would be what you're suggesting. Because that was my next point. If it's 240 or 300, are we talking 100% payout, or are we talking some fractional payout? And it seems like you're talking about an 80% payout on the banked time.
I'm saying that 240, well, I was thinking 100%, but.
100% up to 240, but you can bank up to 300. Right. Okay. And there's nothing above 240, it's 0. Okay. All right. That's, I could actually live with that. I'm not sure. For new employees, I'm not certain what other people think. And when there's another thing about cutting of benefits, government never cuts benefits and et cetera. That's not true. Whether it's your insurance policy or other plans, government benefits get cut all the time. And I'm going to remind people of a meeting we had back in 2013, I believe, where we got updated on Obamacare. In 2017, there might be 18, I forget the exact, 2017, Obamacare is going to put the county into an enormous financial crunch. We're not talking about $1 million or $2 million. We're talking many millions of dollars. And so the benefits, which are, there's the people who say, I want certainty, I want stability, I want security. Well, guess what? Every human being alive wants that. And unfortunately, with the programs that are coming down from the federal government, with the economy, with the various myriad of issues, all of which are not within our control, there is no security. There is no stability. We have to stay within the budget. And insurance is going to be a hard issue come 2017. And so I'll remind people of that, not to panic, because I think after our presentation, and we were told that we could pay every employee's $2,000 fine, we could pay our $2,000 fine, and we'd still save the county roughly $7 million if we had thrown them into the Obamacare system back in 2013. The board decided not to do that, despite we could save $6-7 million, I forget the exact figures that we were given. That is roughly 10% of the general fund budget, actual budget that we spend. In 2017, it's going to be, we're not going to be talking about those low figures anymore. So that's a heads up to everyone. We have a disaster coming. Okay. Absolutely, this is a workshop. Say what you like. No, I'm just saying, people say, I mean, I heard Matt Smith, I heard others, I heard Ron, we want security, we want stability. We can't give that to you. Even if we wanted to give that to you, we do not have the ability financially. There are people who are bigger fish in the waters than us, and things are coming down the pike.
Right, exactly. And we haven't talked about that Cadillac tax, and I think that there are people hoping that with a new administration and some new elected people, that this part of the Obamacare package is going to change. But I've just got to tell you, because someone who watches this obsessively, nothing they've ever said they were going to change has changed. It's just, it's just moving along like the train it is. And I don't know, unless Karen knows anything different. We haven't been told anything different. We're going to have an EBT meeting. But, you're right. It was something we don't really want to think of. No one wants to think about it. But it's probably going to happen unless we get some very tough new leadership in Washington. And for those who don't understand, without going into it now, Google Cadillac tax as part of the Obamacare package. It basically penalizes the people who give good benefits to their employees by putting a penalty price on it for the employer. And it never made sense because it was doing what the administration said they wanted, is people giving good benefits, not junk benefits, as he said. But anyway, we are where we are. So I agree with you. You're right. There are no certainties, and we just do the best we can. But as far as this is concerned, I really hope to tie this up by our October meeting, one way or the other. And I do think it's a good idea to at least find, because now we're hearing new things about what departments. So I do think at this time it is critical to find out what we can do, what we can't do, because we might not be able to even do stuff that we're even just debating about. And the last thing we want is a big dissension. So I do have a name of a lawyer out of Phoenix who came highly recommended to me. And I will call him and find out what exactly his procedure is. I think, did we even vote on that last time, or did we put that on?
I think it was discussed,
All right,
but
we'll talk about it. I think we'll put it on next agenda, and I'll have the information about them. But again, just for the employees, we're not going to do anything that legally we can't do or anything like that. That's the last of my intentions. So, I hope you understand that.
Yeah, and I'll say, Supervisor Angus, that I would like to get this resolved and be done with it. On the other hand, I think getting that independent review is incredibly important, because when we resolve it and get it done with, I want to make sure that we're working within the parameters that we have, so we don't have continued uncertainty once we make that decision. I'll also say, and I'll go back to my original point, just because this board resolves it next meeting or next December doesn't mean it's resolved forever. I mean, any board is free to do whatever they want for the most part, and it's up to us to lay the groundwork, which means they have the financial wherewithal, the cushion, whatever you want to call it, that they don't feel the need to do anything. So if there isn't some relief given in this area, especially with regards to new hires, that begins to gradually take the pressure off, There will be, whether it's perception or reality, future boards will probably do something that we would not like. So it's better to deal with it now and deal with it in a way which relieves that tension that's out there. So that's is there any other comments from any member of the board? Before we wrap up, is there any other elected official comments out there that wants to follow up and question the board? Matt, Ron, Verlin, have I missed anybody? No? Feel free to email us on any of this. I will reassure the employees, from my perspective, I think every board member's perspective, we're not here to hit your current benefits because we want to. We're doing it because we think that we don't know whether we need to. We know that there needs to be change. That change may be accomplished with the new employee plan that we put into place. And as we gather information, we'll be in a better position to make that determination. But no one's going to jump into something and act like a bull in a china shop. We're going to try to do it right. We're going to try to take the time we need and get the information we need. So thank you. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Moved?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you.